Wonderful. Hello, hello. So good to see all of you. I'm Sherry Richert Belul, author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And I'm so happy to see your faces. For those of you, I know we're seeing a couple of people just coming on right now, just to let you know we're just starting. You haven't missed anything. But we have a really important panel today. We have Eric and Nita. Hello, hello. And we're going to be talking about caring for our mental health in difficult times. And wow, right? Like this is a time of life, right? We're still grappling with the pandemic and the political upheavals. So many of us are heartsick over what's going on in Ukraine and all over the world. So many things that have impacted people's mental health. And I'm hoping that Eric and Nita today will talk not only from the perspective of how we care for ourselves, but how we care for the people in our lives who may be struggling. I hope we get a chance to touch on that. So we're going to start off. Nita has graciously offered to help us with a little bit of a grounding exercise to get our circle started. Nita, you ready to take that away?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Good. Okay. Yeah, I was the technical difficulty. So it's a great adventure, as is most of life. So I would like you to start by not closing your eyes. Let's do it a little different. And with your eyes open, I would like you to just feel your left foot. An image of it might come to mind. If you can let that go, just be curious. If it's in a shoe, do you feel your shoe, a sandal? Maybe there's a strap against the side of your foot, your sock. Maybe you feel the floor. I'm just going to be quiet for a minute and just sense what left foot feels like. And that's really it. That's meditation. It's about coming into the present moment, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, maybe once a day, more often if you can, just bringing your mind into your body and being where you're at. So thank you for letting me share that. That's my, that's kind of, it's a joke in the running community kind of that Nita always does her left foot meditation. That's, I have a congenital issue in my foot. And I think that's why it is, but I have a lot of sensations in my left foot. And so it's always presenting itself to me. So thanks, Sherry, for giving me that opportunity.
Nita, thank you. You know what I loved about that is that how my left foot came to life. You know, my left foot was so enthusiastic about everything. And it's just such a great exercise, right? Like where we put our awareness, it really does grow.
Yes, it does. Whatever you put your attention toward, it often either disappears or it comes to life. So sometimes pain, if you put your attention on it, it will disappear, or sometimes it will grow. And being able to have equanimity with that is part of the practice, so that you're just curious as opposed to trying to force it into something. But that's a whole nother lecture for another day.
I love that though. And thank you. Thanks for starting us off. And I know that Eric has something special at the very end of our panel, so we'll get to experience that too. So as always, we're going to have Eric and Nita introduce themselves. And I'd love for you both to talk a little bit, how did you get into the work you're doing? Just tell us a little bit about your most recent book or any book you want to talk about. And also, I would love it if each of you would share, I know you probably have many, but currently your favorite sort of mental health practice for yourself in your own life. And so, Eric, why don't we start with you?
Great to be with you. Of course, as soon as I started speaking, a big mower is going on outside my window. So naturally, but maybe you can't hear it, only I can hear it. So that's good. So yes, my name's Eric Maisel. I started out a million years ago as a little math and science boy. That's who I thought I was. And then science stopped interesting me, probably when I started knowing about girls at whatever age that was. which was about the same time that I flunked out of college, Brooklyn College, because I didn't want to go to classes. I just wanted to date. And so having flunked out of college, you have to do the next thing, which was enlist in the Army, because this was Vietnam era time and I was going to be drafted. So to make the long story short, I have come through this journey through philosophy, through psychology, as a family therapist, and then as someone who stopped believing in the psychiatry model, the mental disorder model. And now I'm an activist in what's called critical psychology or critical psychiatry, a couple of movements where we disagree with the basic current paradigm of diagnosing and treating mental disorders. We don't think that the book that therapists use, the DSM it's called, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, we don't think it's a legitimate document. We think it's a sales catalog for selling labels. So of course there's a lot, that's a long story. The short story is, in thinking about how to be most helpful with ourselves and to another person, it's to shy away from these labels, especially labels for our kids, ADHD, ODD, this, that, and the other thing, because they are just labels. The DSM is silent on causation and it's silent on treatment. It just has what's called symptom pictures. That's the way you diagnose, which is illegitimate in medicine. It's not real medicine. So everyone out there nowadays, I know on your TV, 3 out of 4 ads are pharmaceutical ads nowadays, right? If you watch TV. And so we're bombarded with the idea that a mental disorder is something sort of biological. No one wants to say exactly what that means, but that it's somehow biological and therefore it's fine to treat it with chemicals called medicine. Millions and millions of kids are being diagnosed with ADHD and put on these gateway chemicals that are going to lead to powerful addictions, and they ought not to be put on these chemicals. You can tell that I have a hobby horse here. I have a position. And, you know, if we could talk about it at great length, that would be fun, but I kind of have to give the truncated version. I'm lead editor on a series of books that are being put out by Ethics International Press. It's the Ethics International Press Critical Psychology and Critical Psychiatry series. The first 2 volumes come out in June. One is called Critiquing the Psychiatric Model, and the second is called Humane Alternatives to the Psychiatric Model. So if anyone is interested in what I'm talking about, those volumes are coming out. And I've also done many books in this area, including The Future of Mental Health, Humane Helping, etc. So that's my area, that's my love, that's my place of resistance. I want to resist what I see as the humbug of psychiatry. So that's that. I guess I'll just say the next thing, which is the current book that I have out from Mango is Redesign Your Mind. And let me just speak to it in a minute flat. It's a simple idea. And that's the idea of visualizing your mind as a room and imagining that you can redesign and redecorate it. It's a way of using visualization in a particular way. Everybody on the call knows where visualizations came from a certain hospital in Northern California some decades ago, where somebody got the idea to have cancer patients visualize their healthy cells defeating their cancerous cells. It arose in a medical environment, and now it's used in a million different ways, visualizing, used in all kinds of ways. It's a very powerful device. It's really just using verbal cues to create a visual image. The visual image I'm inviting people to create is the room that is their mind. And once you do that, you can do all kinds of interesting things. That room has corners, and you can have special corners for special reasons, like a public speaking corner where you speak your mind and don't censor yourself, etc. So it's a robust metaphor, and people are enjoying it. And at the end, we'll do a little visualization around that. Thank you.
Oh, Eric, First of all, thank you. Thank you. I know you have so much. We were talking before we all went live about you have 4 books coming out in the next couple of months, right? It's just huge.
Correct.
Hey, but one thing I want to hear, what is your right now go-to mental health practice for yourself?
Did you speak to me? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, Eric, I was just wondering in your own life, your sort of go-to right now, I'm sure you have many, but your go-to mental health practice.
Yeah, being with my wife.
Oh,
Relationship.
yeah.
I work with creative performing artists as a creativity coach. They all want to create. They often forget to relate. It rhymes, so it's catchy, create and relate, but it's important because historically, creative artists who have been brilliant at their work still commit suicide if they have no relational life. Still, life is too cold and unpleasant and unhappy and empty to just make the next painting or the next symphony. So for me, I'm not going to call it a mental health strategy or tactic being in a relationship, but we've been together 45-ish years now, I think. So that's a while. And we convene every day at about 3 o'clock for happy hour, and I need that.
Oh, Eric, I'm so glad you brought that in. And as you were saying that, we have a lot of people here who have been here a lot ever since we started these panels a couple of years ago, right when the pandemic started. And we also have some new people, but to me, this connection serves that, like you're saying, to have these ongoing relationships that really support us. And so it seemed like a good point for me just to say thank you to all of you for being here.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, thank you, Eric. And I know we'll hear lots more about you and your work. And Nita, by the way, was a real technological hero today, getting you had like minutes to kind of switch everything out and get to us, and here you are. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's always an honor to be on these panels, and especially today with Eric. It's it just feels like a special treat. So yeah, so I'll just launch in here. I have 2 books currently out by Mango. The first is Depression Hates a Moving Target. Can you see that? Okay.
Mhm.
How Running with My Dog Brought Me Back from the Brink. And I just want to say, Eric, before I began running, I was on 6 different mental health medications.
Mhm.
And I do believe that at that time, those meds saved my life. I do believe that. But I'm very, very grateful that I'm not on them anymore. I'm on one medicine, take a tiny dose, and then I'm on a thyroid medicine. So the exercise practice that I have has really helped me move away from that pharmaceutical model. So I'm very curious about your work now, Eric, because I think that's really, really important. So that's my first Mango book. The other book that I have with Mango that's out, I co-wrote or co-created really with Brenda Knight. It's called You Should Be Writing. And it's a journal. I mean, literally blank pages with author quotes at the top. I love it when Brenda talks about that book. She says about all the horrible writing advice she hears at different conferences, and I have heard that. And so we compiled something with what we hope is good advice, quotes from authors, and then blank pages where you can put your own creation. So that's the second one. And then the third book that I have coming out in August, which I'm really, really excited about. It feels like I said to a friend that I think I worked harder on that book than I did studying for the bar exam. It was a tough 6 months, and it was fantastic. And it's called Make Every Move a Meditation, Mindful Movement for Mental Health, Well-Being, and Insight. And it's about what I shared with you earlier. We hear so much about sitting meditation, but we can do meditation anytime, in any moment. And so it's my instruction and background and support for how to make any movement that you do a meditation. So again, that's available for pre-order and is coming out in August. So that's kind of my Mango spin there. And how did I get into this? Because I have suffered from chronic depression bipolar disorder, a lot of the symptoms that Eric talked about for many, many years. I have been suicidal. I have been hospitalized for suicidal ideation, attempts. And I had tried to write about a lot of other things sort of around that. And finally, when I began to run, and that improved my well-being, my mindset, helped me physically, when those changes started to happen, and of course, other people saw it first before I did. And then I wanted to tell that story of a woman who was essentially not sure she wanted to live into one who feels like she's thriving. And I had the stamina after becoming a long distance runner to write a book, which I also didn't have before. So that's how I sort of landed here. And then I always like to say that Brenda waved her magic wand. I call her my fairy godmother. It always feels like she just sort of scooped me up and, tossed me into the Mango family. With her little, I know, Brenda, she's got that magical quality to her. So it sort of feels like that, but I worked really hard too. And, that's kind of my journey. I've been a meditator for over 25 years now. I had that foundation. I have done writing practice I was assistant to a woman named Natalie Goldberg, who coined the term writing practice. And, that was kind of her gig, which is a Zen-based writing. So I had that. And when I added the movement, when I added the body part of it, it felt like things really came alive. So those are kind of my three things. And I know, Sherry, you just wanted one tip, but for me, I have to have all three of those. I have to have some regular writing practice of some kind, whether it's just a brain dump or just, my random thoughts or creating something specific. I have to have the writing. I have to have some meditation. For me, that is sometimes quiet, sometimes a silent meditation, and I have to have movement. So I need all three of those. Sometimes it's hard to get that balance in. And so I don't always do all three every day, but I can feel it when it's like I think of it as a three-legged stool. So you always have to have all three of those legs on the ground. And that's, if I'm going to give a tip, I would say, look for what's missing. And if there's any way to just even bring a tiny bit of it in, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. You don't have to run a friggin' marathon. You can just walk around the block.
Oh, Nita. First of all, I'm so glad you're still here. Oh my goodness. Seriously. You've just had such a wonderful impact on countless people, and including myself. So love that. And of course, you could give us 3 tips all in one, because I love that, right? Because that also might be something that sparks something for someone, right? Like maybe someone has I've been doing, I've been meditating, or I've been, I exercise every day or whatever, but kind of knowing that sometimes it's a healthy cocktail of different things for each of us. So I appreciated that. Yeah. Eric, was there anything that you wanted to say in response to anything you just heard?
Yeah, absolutely. So while psychiatric medications are not medications from my point of view, because in order for them to be medications, there needs to be a biological disorder underneath rather than a psychological disorder or something else going on. So while they're not medications, they are chemicals with powerful effects, and they have effects. And sometimes one wants those effects. So I'm not against chemicals with powerful effects, especially if we need them. If we're in a very dark place, if we're suicidal, we may need a door to open via chemicals, not unlike other chemicals in life that we could name that are not drugs or not medication, but that are chemicals that we use for reasons. So I'm not anti-chemicals. I'm anti the labeling game of calling them medication, because they're not medication unless there's a disease, and there's no scientific evidence that these things are diseases. So let me back up. So I have a vision of personality as being built out of 3 parts, what I call original personality, formed personality, and available personality. I can say this pretty quickly, I think. Some aspects of life, some aspects of our personality come with us as soon as we're born. They're part of our genetic makeup. Psychology, psychiatry is not interested in original personality, has no way to talk about it, doesn't act as if we come into the world already ourselves. But just imagine that if we come into the world some combination of sensitive and smart and sad and this, that, and the other thing, we're going to have a lifelong challenge of a case of the blues, because we're going to see the world wisely, smartly, sensitively. We're going to see humbug around us. Many things will be going on that may cause us to sink. That's not a mental disorder. That's a feature of our original personality and a lifelong challenge. So the sorts of things that Nita was describing as ways to help with this lifelong challenge, and there are many, many things that can help with these lifelong challenges without calling them mental disorders. The second you call them a mental disorder, A, you're opening the door, you're giving permission for all kinds of chemical interventions, and you're also weakening yourself, weakening the person you're labeling by suddenly making them a patient through no other means than a linguistic transaction. Nowadays, psychiatrists typically meet with their patients for a first session of 15 minutes in length. What could conceivably go on in 15 minutes except a quick checklist linguistic transaction thing? Meaning, I come in, I say you're depressed, you say yes, you're depressed, and you start to write script. That's about what goes on. It's like, I say something, you buy it, you write the script, and we're done. And that's really not okay. In real medicine, there's an investigation needed. There's an exam needed, something like examination, some understanding of what might be causing whatever it is I'm announcing. But that's not of interest. Causality is not of interest in psychology and psychiatry. So I know I'm saying a lot at once, but in a way, I'm ratifying Nita's ideas of sort of simple practices that deal with what might be a lifelong challenge. Somewhere along the line, the age of 3 or 4 or 5, we may have decided that life's a cheat, or that life's not okay. We may have made some decision way out of conscious awareness that things are not okay. Maybe we grew up with bullying parents, or we could name a million adverse childhood experiences that might cause us to not like life. That's not a mental disorder. That's a reaction to experiences and a lifelong challenge. And we do have to figure out things to do to meet those challenges.
Nita, you want to?
Just yes. I will say that I have been very, very fortunate to have excellent mental health care. Because I was a partner in a law firm, I had amazing access to health providers. And so as soon as I walked into a psychiatrist's office, I'm also a pretty sensitive person. If I got the sense that they were going to kick me out of their office in 15 minutes, I just went ahead and left and found another one. And I've been through quite a few. And I looked and looked and looked until I found someone who would spend the time to actually see me. And that's so rare. Eric, you are,
Right.
that is so rare. So I love what you're doing. Yes.
Right. And that's not their psychiatric training to listen. That's being a human being. That's just being a human being sitting across from another human being.
Yep.
And so there's nothing, I sometimes, it boggles the mind that the following goes on. If these were real medical conditions, mental disorders, how do master's level practitioners with no schooling in medicine get to diagnose clients with clinical depression or what have you? How can that be that somebody with no medical training or even necessarily any particular psychological training is allowed to, quote, diagnose and treat mental disorders? It's the power of the analogy between mental disorder and physical disorder. That analogy is so powerful that people just believe that there must be something called a mental disorder since there are physical disorders.
Well, language, they're all in so much pain. I mean, that was my experiences. I was in so much pain that I could not think for myself. I needed someone, but luckily I have such a strong gut and the support of an amazing husband, and this insurance. I had this support that a lot of people don't have. but yeah, I mean, I definitely blindly went in places and I just wanted the misery to stop.
Yes. And this is not about you, Nita, at all. It's just that there are lots of studies that 50% of the effect of so-called antidepressants is the placebo effect. It's just the sense that somebody's trying to help you, and here's a pill to take, and you're in good hands. And so that's a pretty robust part of the efficacy of these chemicals is the placebo effect, and that's logical. It's logical. We're coming in looking for help. Somebody hands us something, we feel like we're being helped. And since what's going on is personality based or psychological or this, that, or the other thing, or original personality or whatever it is, it's natural that we're going to feel better if we feel like we're being helped.
The thing, yeah, I love this conversation so much. Having gone through myself deep depression and not having had Nita's, really strong gut or really strong support at the time, I was one of those people who just, there was something wrong with me, right? I just, for whatever reason, like Eric was saying, from the time I was little, I just thought there was something wrong with me. As I learned about mental illness, then I started using that phrase, oh, there's it's mental illness. And so then going in and getting those prescriptions, even though they may have had the placebo effect, which I don't really remember now, I don't think they did so much, but there was still something wrong with me in my mind. And so what I love about this conversation, where I think we're headed, right, is into this place of really opening up to the fact that there's nothing wrong with us. Right.
I could nod to that there's nothing wrong with us, but we can be in real pain, real distress, real difficulty. So again, language is a little tricky here. It's nothing wrong from a, so to speak, mental disorder, biological place, but there's lots that's going on that's not okay. There are lots of challenges that we're facing, wherever they're coming from. Would it be surprising that a Ukrainian refugee would be not feeling okay right now? Let me give you a very concrete example. Right now, the DSM has gone through many revisions over the years. It started in about the 1950s, and it's at the DSM-5 now, 5th revision. And there's just been an updated revision to the 5th revision coming out in April. And psychiatrists are always trying to push through new mental disorders, just by fiat, just by announcing them. And so they've for some time been trying to make grief a mental disorder. That's been one of their hobby horses. Let's see if we can make grief a mental disorder, which of course should strike you as nutty. And they have not been allowed to by kind of public acclaim. The universe has refused to allow them to do that, except they just pulled it off. So now in the DSM-5 revised, there's now a new mental disorder, prolonged grief. So now if you're a child, let's say you lose your parents and you're a child, you now have exactly 6 months to grieve them. If you go to 181 days, you have a mental disorder. It sounds ludicrous. It sounds Kafkaesque. I know it sounds crazy, but this is the actual world. If you're an adult, you have 1 year to grieve the loss of your husband or something. If you go to 366 days, you have a mental disorder and the chemicals start. So they've got the magic adjective in there, prolonged. That's what got them the allowance to make this now a mental disorder. They're always looking for any set of things, any set of human challenges, any distress to turn into a mental disorder. I guess I want to put a period there because I know I could run off on this one. Let me just put a period there. But it's really not okay what's going on. Everybody has their own worries and places of interest, and it's hard to pay attention to big pharma and psychiatry and all of that. It's hard to pay attention to that when the world is presenting one kind of monolithic view of mental disorders. But in fact, it's really an emperor's new clothes thing. The emperor is really naked there and doing a lot of damage.
Nita, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, without crawling up on my soapbox, which is very tall about big pharma. No, I don't. So yeah, I think he said it very well. And I'm a lawyer, I'm a journalist, I'm a writer. I am not a medical professional. I am have been a patient in the mental health industry, shall we call it? A recipient of the
Yep. But
pharmaceutical.
even
And so I don't have the expertise. I do have experience, and my experience matches what he's saying.
yeah, and so if we were to ask favorite authors, one of my favorite authors is Orwell, and his understanding of how language is used and abused and how we're moved to do things by virtue of language. The people who come into a psychiatrist's office are not patients till they cross the threshold. They were human beings a moment before. One step before crossing the threshold, they were a person. The second they cross over, they ought to be, whatever you want to call them, a client or something, but not a patient. Because for them to be a patient, there needs to be some exam, there needs to be some test, something to make it medicine. And that everyone is buying the self-designated patient thing. Again, this of course is not about you, Nita. It's just everybody's using this language. I'm a patient of a psychiatrist. No, you're sitting across from a person who's claiming a certain kind of expertise and has a lovely array of chemicals to provide, but it's just not medicine. So those folks are just not patients. They're still human beings.
I have a question, Eric. What about neurofeedback? How do you feel about that? Do you have any experience with neurofeedback where they actually do an EEG? Because that's been part of my treatment plan and has been very effective. But again, how much is placebo? I don't know.
Well, it's not just placebo. This is hard to say in a few sentences, but there's the matter of causality. So let's say something happens that makes me sad. My brain is going to register that sadness. And if you look at my brain in whatever way you look at my brain, you're going to see it different from the moment before. But it's the sadness that caused the brain difference rather than the brain difference having caused the sadness. The way brain imagery is being used, it's the other way around. So we take a picture of a brain and say, oh, this is the brain of a person with this thing. It's the brain causing the thing, whereas it's the other way around. It's, to use an analogy, if you're demoralized and you sit on your sofa for a year straight and your leg atrophies, your leg didn't atrophy for any other reason except you were demoralized and you sat there for all of that time. There was a psychological component to the biological result. So in psychiatry and in psychology, causality is typically turned upside down. That isn't a direct answer to what you're saying, but we have to be very careful about it. When you read a study about brain scans, you have to be really careful about what that study is saying and about the directionality of the causality, because typically the directionality is reversed to make a certain kind of biological point.
Got it. I like that perspective. Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate that.
I wanted to invite Brenda because hi, I saw you joined us. Welcome. Hi. And Brenda, I know you and I had talked about doing a panel on mental health and how important that is right now. I just wanted to see, we have these two wonderful authors here. Was there anything that you wanted to bring into the conversation?
Well, I think I was maybe asking for this pairing selfishly because I, every year or maybe for the last 3 years, we keep thinking, okay, next year is going to be better. Oh, well, okay, maybe the next year will be better. And I feel like here we are like 3 years into like pandemic, and now there's like a war and just like daily horrors, and like, how do you maintain your equilibrium and mental health like in a world that is unrelentingly negative and difficult and shocking? How do you avoid everyday PTSD just because of what you might see like on the street or like on the news?
Let me speak to that a little, Brenda, if I may. I have a a vision or a model, paradigm shift from the idea of the purpose to life, life purpose, to the idea of life purposes, that each of us has multiple life purpose choices to make, and they shift. Our life purpose choices shift according to circumstances and where we are in our lives and developmental reasons and what have you. I think one of the things that keeps us mentally healthy is remembering that we can rejigger the pecking order of our life purpose choices. And maybe some things that we thought were important to do yesterday aren't as important as Nita was saying, exercise today, or some calming ritual, something that we didn't think we needed yesterday. We thought we were sort of beyond it or didn't need it. Now we need it today because we're in a deeper hole. So I think this vision of being able to take charge of our life purpose choices and negotiate a day around our life purpose choices so we know what's most important to us, both temporally from beginning of the day to the end and also just in a priority sense. This ability to announce our life's purpose choices and live them, I think helps us have an ability to weather what's going on a little better than if we didn't, that if we thought there was a purpose to life and that purpose was not available to us any longer.
Hmm. That speaks to something that's on my mind, like you'll might be surprised by what I'm saying. Like, I'm acquiring books that help people as fast as I can, as you guys know, because like I acquire books from you, many of you. And like, but I feel like, oh, it's not enough. And then I also think like, what do people need now? Like, what are books that would like comfort people now, and so I was sort of just thinking like maybe like calming rituals or something like that. Like you kind of gave me a book idea, but that is one thing I would love to hear, like from this group and the panelists and everything. It's just like, what do we think people are needing? Because like oh my gosh, like I want to help people through the books we publish, doing it as fast as I can, but it doesn't feel like it's enough, or maybe there's not as much immediacy or something. I feel the call to respond even further, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to me, Brenda. I definitely am feeling the overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
I personally am really limiting how much news I watch. I want to be informed, but yet I also know that I'm not effective if I watch too much and, I can't do things. But yeah, and I think it's also very individual because some people, they have to help. I mean, they just have to help. And so the books that help the helpers help without completely depleting themselves are so important. And then there's other people who need to create in order to be feel effective. And so those people can create, I just think it's so individual. And that's one of the great things about Mango is that you've got so many books that feed so many different interests. But I am very cautious about the overwhelm. And it's so trite. It is so trite, but I will say it. We have to put our own oxygen mask on first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hate saying it. And then the other one is the nearest exit may be behind you. I mean,
Yeah.
that is like the most brilliant thing, because I am, beating my head against a wall or running toward a closed door when there might be something. If I can have keep my own energy in myself and calm myself to see an option that's behind me that I didn't, as opposed to what my tendency is to scrabble for the one that, that kind of thing. So I did just fly this weekend for the first time in a long time. So sorry about that. But it's a really rough time. It is just, I don't know anybody who's not struggling. I mean, I just don't know anybody. So thank you for bringing that question though, Brenda, because I think it's probably the most important thing we can have right now. And I love what Eric said too about remembering how much power we have in our practices. For me, it's, I don't do as much of the more visualization or that kind of thing. So I'm very curious about what Eric's going to say about that. But for me, it's remembering that this moment right here is where all of my power is, all of my energy is. Any action I take is going to come from this moment. And again, that's me. That's what works for me. And so the practices that keep me right here, while that other world, not in denial, I do not want to be in denial, but I want to be present so that I have the full energy here to do whatever I can.
Nita, I love that what you're saying about self-care. And I feel like I just wanted to underscore that because we've talked about that on, previous panels over the last couple of weeks. And a part of that, I think, as crazy as it might sound to people, but I want to bring this in, is really feeling our own joy and gratitude of our lives and allowing that to fuel us. Because I've been talking to a lot of people recently who are feeling guilty about the blessings in their own lives. And to me, when I feel grateful for my life and for the blessings, gratitude wants to give, right? There's a generosity, and that's, there's no one answer, as Nita just said, as we've been all saying, but to me, that's one of the pieces, is to allow ourselves to be fueled by whatever joy we have in our own lives so that we can, like you said, Nita, then we can look around and see, where can I help?
And I think there's also it's kind of abstract, but there's another mental model piece here that's important, and that's making the shift from believing that meaning is out there somewhere to the idea that meaning is a certain kind of psychological experience, and as such, naturally comes and goes. People get very disturbed when meaning vanishes, but like all psychological states, it necessarily comes and goes. So it's helpful when meaning seems to have vanished or drained out of the enterprise or left life, to remember that it's a renewable resource and a wellspring, that meaning comes back. And there are things to do to help meaning come back, like have one's list of meaning opportunities. By that I mean, what's provoked the experience of meaning in one's life before is something to try again. If going to the zoo with your 5-year-old just feels meaningful, go to the zoo with your 5-year-old again. Not brilliant, but actually deep, to understand that some of these kinds of activities that are so simple, if we experience them as meaningful once, we're likely to experience them as meaningful again. And that's one of the ways to restore meaning in life, is to know what's felt me. Often we think something's supposed to feel meaningful, like our PhD program or something, and it doesn't. And other very small things, like a conversation with our Aunt Rose, that was the most meaningful thing of the week, where she told some family secret that we never knew, and that was really important. So just getting a refined sense of what actually feels meaningful in life, and then repeating it, rinse and repeat, and also having the adult understanding that meaning comes and goes, and not be so scared when meaning vanishes for an hour or a day or even a week or whatever, that it can come back, and it will come back, because it is a renewable resource.
Anybody else want to jump in with thoughts about this? Rachel.
I just have to say, this conversation is hitting just at the perfect timing for me, because just yesterday I got into a very deep conversation about I put too much pressure on myself. It's not other people that put it on me. I put it on myself. And so I know that energy was stifling me, and it was keeping me from like projecting what I wanted to project. And so I had talked to someone, and they said, more important than anything is to do what feels good. Get up and do what feels good. And just like you were saying, Eric, it's like, it could be so simple. And this weekend, I got together with 2 friends, and it felt good. It's but just to remind myself to do what feels good, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, everything. And then the other thing because I had been doing, how is what I'm doing, how is what I'm thinking, doing, believing, serving myself? How is what I'm doing, thinking, believing, serving others? That kept me from watching the news because it wasn't serving me and it wasn't serving others, me watching the news. Me calling a Ukraine church and asking what they need for donations, that serves me and that serves others. So that's kind of how I've been trying to stay out of the chaos of the world, is by really trying to be conscious of where I'm putting my energy. So
in my conversations with clients, we seem to talk a lot about heartfelt service, how to be of service at this moment, and also reframing their creative efforts as heartfelt service rather than around ego and ambition and just creating things because it's not feeling quite right to indulgently write a poem at this moment or paint a painting. But if it's in the context of heartfelt service, of one heart connecting to another heart out there, then that feels different, and it brings back the motivation to do the work.
That's kind of what I was going to say too, Eric, that we have to remember that even though it may feel like the little tiny thing we're doing is just so small in the bigger picture of things, if it helps me re-energize so that I can then go out and do something that's of service, then it's perfect. It's perfect. Because I think when the world feels just so hard, it just does sometimes, I think that I have to just deplete myself because these other people are dying and starving, and that's not good. That's not helpful to them if I drain myself. But if I can keep my own battery charged, then I can go out and like Rachel said, find the Ukrainian church or find a charity or find some Ukrainian family here that's just having a rough emotional time and just listen to them. It can be the smallest things. And I often overlook that. I want it to be something huge. I really do.
Yeah. In our life, I have an 18-year-old Russian granddaughter, and she just fled Russia with her mom, landed in Dubai, and now they've landed in Israel, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing in life and where they're going in life. And so we've been communicating with them, and a million things that are needed to figure out the next steps. But in a way, it's fortunate to have a clear place to put some helpfulness and some energy and some lovingness and some service. So it's in a bizarre way a blessing to have somebody to help.
How are they doing?
Not well.
Yeah.
Katya spent all day yesterday crying because one dream scenario that they had hoped for fell through. She was accepted to an Italian university, but she had hoped that she maybe could get a student visa to Italy. There are many details to this story, but nothing's working.
I'm glad they have you. Yeah.
Yes, we're trying.
Eric, would this be a good time to do the meditation visualization that you had talked about?
Sure. Happy to do that. Let me gather my wits.
As you're doing that, I'll let everybody know. So yes, so Eric has offered to guide us. Those of you who know his amazing book, and I think Bree has put the link down below, Redesign Your Mind. There's a lot of, I love the visualizations in the book. And so he's agreed to share one with us right now as we're closing out our circle today. So thank you, Eric.
Sure. So let me provide the setup again one more time. And that is the idea, which I think is more than an idea. I think it's a truth. I think there is some sense that we have a room mind or a mind room. I think we have that experience. Descartes likened our mind to a stage upon which our dramas play out. And that's a metaphor that I think has some richness too. I think the metaphor of our mind as a room is a really interesting metaphor. So let's experience it a bit, and let me lead us through a visualization here. Open eyes or closed eyes, whatever you prefer. I'm going to open mine so I can follow my script. So please get comfortable. You can place not only your left foot on the ground, but both feet. I'm guessing Nita has 2 legs. Place your feet nice and firmly on the ground. Just start to breathe regularly and easily. And have the experience of going to your mind room. It doesn't matter what it looks like or how you visualize it, whatever comes up for you according to that phrase, just experience going to your mind room. And as you enter, turn on the light to your mind room. Feel yourself turning on the light and illuminating your mind room. And as you do that, have the light switch also be a calmness switch. Let that switch do double duty. So from now until the end of time, you can enter your mind room more calmly just by, when you turn on the light, feel that calmness. And maybe, as like many minds, maybe it's a little musty in there. Repetitive thoughts, same old thoughts, pestering yourself with the same old thoughts. So let's install some windows. Install some windows in your mind room, maybe 2 or 3. Throw them open. Let's get a breeze going. Let's have a breeze blow through your mind room. Nice, refreshing spring or summer breeze. And also you have new vistas now. You can look out those windows at whatever you like, the lake, the garden. But mainly it's to get a breeze going through and blowing some of those stale thoughts out. Now, where are you going to sit? Well, in many minds, there's just a bed of nails there. That's where you live in your mind room, on a bed of nails, pestering yourself, criticizing yourself. Well, we're going to throw out that bed of nails. It's easy to throw things in a visualization. Just throw it right out. And install an easy chair. Nice, comfy chair. Let's connect the dots. So now you're calmly, because you flipped the calmness switch, you're calmly sitting in your nice, easy chair with a breeze blowing through your mind room. Just experience that for a bit. It's not the way you usually are in your mind, I'd bet. This is gentler, more self-friendly, and also prepares you for whatever might be next. Writing your novel or building your business or whatever your mind needs to do next. And this could be the way you inhabit your mind room all the time from here on in. More calmly, in an easy chair, with a breeze blowing through. This is the way you could inhabit your mind. just enjoy this experience for a while. In the book, Redesign Your Mind, there are another 75 or whatever visualizations, other things to do in this room, build a speaker's corner, all kinds of things that are worth doing. But for now, we'll just go with calmness and an easy chair and a breeze. Be there as long as you like, and when you'd like to come back, do come back.
I didn't want to come back. I don't know about anybody else. Eric, thank you. I
You're
love that you taught us that today so that we have that safe space to go to.
Yeah, I think it works.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Eric and Nita, everyone who's here from Mango, everyone who's here participating. That was so powerful. I really appreciate everyone being here. I say this all the time, but it really matters that you show up. We feel your energy. Thank you so much. We are here every Wednesday, so hope you'll come back. And again, Bree has posted the links to the books that Eric and Nita have been talking about. So good stuff. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, Sherry.
you.
Thank you, Eric.
See you next
Thank you,
week.
Brenda, always.
Thank
for
you.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Go sit